The video game industry thinks that the E3 party can last forever, and I'm not buying it. Hi there, this is a channel where I make fun of marketing because it has no value and contributes nothing at a time when we desperately need to contribute in positive ways. I want to explore in this video whether there are any genuinely positive aspects of E3 season at all. Not for major video game brands, but for us, the human beings of planet Earth. For someone who has just a natural hatred for marketing and consumerism in general, then highly condensed back-to-back advertising from game industry brands is obviously a no-go. It's best to be avoided. But for someone who just likes playing games and hasn't dipped their toes into anti-consumerism just yet, I think there's more to consider. I will do my best to consider those things in this video, but of course, feel free to tell me I'm wrong or add to the discussion in the comments. Just be friendly. That's the only rule. Video start. Okay, so let's walk through the E3 timeline and explain what it is in case you just have no idea what I'm talking about. So E3, which it stands for the Electronic Entertainment Expo, was an annual video game industry convention and press event right here in Los Angeles. And it was organized by the ESA, which is a lobbyist group that spends money to influence the decisions of US lawmakers to maintain conditions favorable to game developers and publishers, which is incredibly important when your industry is engaged in practices that should probably be made illegal or at least tightly regulated. Now, while E3 was initially for industry people and press only, for obvious reasons, and as video games in general became much more popular, much more mainstream through the years, E3 became a topic of public discussion pretty quickly. And eventually, not until the late 2010s, I guess, E3 opened its doors to the general public through ticket sales. Now, over the last several years, E3 has died a piddly kind of death as the major platform holders like Sony and Microsoft, for example, began opting out of participation or just reducing their presence at E3, which, outside of a number of other factors, made sense financially because participation on that scale in this show likely cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, like just to be involved and to have giant booths on the show floor. And that is on top of the costs of producing their massive stage shows that they would deliver as part of this showcase. So around that same time as E3 was in the process of dying, a marketing professional called Jeff Keighley started an alternative showcase that was called Summer Game Fest, and it is still around. But certainly thus far, it hasn't reached anywhere near the same scale as E3's past. And overall, the show itself, especially the more recent iterations, are so densely packed with game ads, referred to as trailers, and other types of ads for things like snacks and soda and razors, I guess, that actually watching this thing feels like the tunnel scene from Willy Wonka, but just less entertaining.
Jeff was talking about how, games are, just as valid as other media, and therefore there'll be, sponsorship from big brands and stuff. And, we saw it here with like Samsung and LG and, basic advertising. But when you're having that sort of literally thrown at you, in addition to all of this other random imagery, I just don't think the show works. And I think it's a real shame because there's so much that I actually want to see, and I just don't think this is the venue for doing it.
And despite all of these changes, the ghost of E3 continues to compel both press and regular people to treat this time of year, meaning early June, and these types of events as serious business. You get the sense that everybody still wants this to be a special time of year. They want something to look forward to. They want a very focused event, a reason for everybody to get together and watch things and talk about video games at the same time. And if you're really into this stuff, then there's a pretty good chance that you're watching these presentations live, that you're watching them later, or at least looking at coverage that has been filtered through various press outlets and YouTube channels. And of course, I am guilty of doing all of this. I watch presentations live, or at least I have in recent years. I watch replays of older presentations. I watch highlights. I watch reactions. I watch discussions. And I use the word guilty because I don't feel good about any of it. Objectively, we're talking about hours and hours and hours of advertisements. That is all these presentations are, no matter how you slice it. And even the most critical discussion of these ad presentations by really talented creators still does the work of promoting them, even if it's not trying to. And with all of this in mind, this pseudo tradition of E3 season, as we now tend to call it, means that the video games industry as a whole is in an extremely cushy position, specifically when it comes to marketing. The vast majority of brands and advertisers just out in the real world are working in product categories that need to force ads on their general audiences. Just anything at all. Just think of like shoes, like cleaning products, SUVs, we'll get to cars some other time. These are not things that people tend to pay attention to unless they're currently in the market for them. But meanwhile, over here in Gamerland, people are lining up, literally or figuratively, to watch advertising marathons on the off chance that they're going to see an ad for something that they're into. An ad which, by the way, may or may not be representative of the final product that will release, maybe 3 months from then, 2 years later, 5 years into the future, possibly, unless it gets outright canceled, which also happens quite a bit. And these same viewers will then do the unpaid marketing work that I was talking about in the last video. They'll tweet about products, they'll post about products, and they'll create content about products free of charge. And honestly, at least off the top of my head, the only comparable scenarios that I can think of are like modern day Comic-Con and the kinds of panels and announcements they do there, and the Disney adult fan base, specifically around events like D23.
Disney parks and Star Wars.
But with all of this, the question is why? Why do people like me engage in this raw, filthy consumerism so willingly? And at least for now, here's what I've come up with. We care about it, it's a collective communal experience, and there's train wreck potential. I don't think we need to really belabor these. I'll just do a quick run through. So yes, we do care about this stuff. Video games represent a medium that people are genuinely very invested in, both emotionally and financially. And because well-known, established IP still generally dominate big budget game development, existing fans of whatever franchise have legitimate reasons to hope that they're going to get news on a series that they like. And similarly, fans of like dormant or even dead franchises may suddenly see their favorite series revived just because the powers that be have decided it was time for a reboot. In terms of the collective experience, the E3 season, though it's no longer built on E3 itself, does still feel like a collective communal event. There are enough people watching live, both in person and online, that there's a sense of shared experience. So when those big moments happen, the things that are meant to grab headlines and attention, celebrity endorsements have been some of the biggest moments in recent years.
What's up, everybody? And what's up, Jeff?
When those things happen, people feel the gratification of being a part of it. And you can bet that brands have been really eager to exploit this feeling. Some succeed at that, some fail at that, which brings us to the train wreck potential. Because E3 has historically been associated with like show floors and big live stage shows, there have also been some really fantastic face plants. So it's genuinely enjoyable to watch these showcases, even with the worst intentions.
And we'll be partnering with AT&T as the exclusive carrier for PlayStation Vita in the United States.
Okay, so those are all of the obvious reasons that, you know, the future anthropologists will be very interested in when they're trying to fathom why we did this stuff in the first place. But the secret fourth reason that I think a lot of us have for just sitting ourselves down for some voluntary ad watching is that we've been convinced, or have self-convinced maybe, that video game trailers and overly long nothing speeches from suits and developers, speeches that have been carefully written by marketing teams, of course, that these things just aren't advertising. Many of us seem to still believe that video games are some kind of untouched, purist art form, when in reality, art in video games exists in spite of the realities of what the industry has become. And maybe it's for this reason that the modern versions of the presentations I've been talking about this whole time go hard on attempts to manufacture authenticity. But unfortunately for them, the amount of money spent has an inverse relationship with authenticity. So these attempts generally fail. And even so, despite the very clear adness, the advertising nature of these video game ads, we still want to believe that there's a substance, that there's a muchness in the industry that hasn't been completely wrung out of it by now. And I believe that there is somewhere. It does exist, but it does not generally exist within the biggest and most expensive marketing spectacle of the year. So with the shape of E3 season well established now, is it healthy? Is it good? Is it something that we want to keep doing? Or more appropriately, since I'm just talking to a camera right now in the middle of the night, is it something that I want to keep doing? You folks can make your own decisions. I trust you. But as usual, I just want to offer my thoughts in case they happen to resonate with someone. And to be honest, at least on a really basic level, I'm very tempted to just let it all slide. You know, this is a general feeling that I get several times a day. It's just like, shut up. Like, why do I need to share an opinion at all? Especially a negative opinion on something. And that's balanced out by, well, but what if the thing is actually bad? What if the thing is actually worth criticizing, or again, is something that I don't want to be a part of my life? And a significant part of me does want to just keep watching and kind of drooling at video game press conferences for all of the reasons that I talked about a few minutes ago. Caring about something on the surface? Good. Collective communal experience? Good. Train wreck potential? Maybe not good, but certainly entertaining. But the problem with each of these, all of which are also really common aspects of contemporary advertising outside of the games industry as well, is that they can and often have developed or grown in negative directions. For example, the dark side of caring about something a lot is dismissing things that you don't care about, or dismissing anyone who doesn't share your taste. The dark side of having a collective communal experience is excluding and otherizing people who weren't part of that experience, or even worse, rallying around brand and product-based communities and then going to war with the corporate enemies of those communities. And the dark side of train wreck potential, I think, is kind of self-explanatory. You know, maybe someone will actually experience real world harm as a result of a simple, embarrassing mistake. And for the viewer, the dark side is just an increased appetite for bad things to happen, which is just obviously unhealthy. And these negative developments aren't just projections. These aren't just things that I imagine might happen one day. These can all be observed in the gaming community in general. And during E3 season, they just feel even more concentrated. For example, there are clear and sometimes militant divides, not only between players who prefer different gaming platforms, not only between players who prefer different game franchises, but even between fans of the same franchise who just happen to prefer different entries or approaches or styles. There are also lots of attempts to dismiss specific games offhand, dismiss entire franchises or platforms, and in fact, people who like to argue about gaming platforms specifically are called console warriors, and one of the best ways to make a console warrior angry is to suggest that the choice of platform is not actually very important at all, which also happens to be true. Similarly, if someone makes a mistake on stage or does something embarrassing or says something that turns out to be inaccurate, they are guaranteed to be included in one or multiple compilations, and if any of those given clips gets memed, then the subject of that clip is going to be associated with that one moment, likely for the rest of their life. Which does sound pretty funny until you imagine being in that situation yourself. Again, I'm guilty of this stuff too. I don't tend to say any of it. I don't tend to post a lot of these kinds of things, but I've definitely thought about it. I do experience schadenfreude. I have had my own personal opinions about, which system, which brand was better than all the others. I'm not above any of this stuff, and it's because I'm not above any of it that I'm questioning all of it. When so many of these aspects lean towards negativity over time, why am I still participating? And I think the natural answer is, well, there's still positivity to be had. Something genuinely exciting might happen, for one, or I might hear about a game that I'll be immediately interested in. I might enjoy immersing myself in trashy consumerism for a bit. It is fun. That's why we do it. But even here, I think the positive potential of E3 season has been progressively eaten away by the law of diminishing returns. These events used to feel special a long time ago, and now they just don't, due in part to the fact that many showcases are now pre-recorded. Everything is calculated, everything is rehearsed, and executives don't give themselves any opportunities to become internet laughingstocks, or at least they think they don't. And this is incredibly subjective, but there's a desperation to the modern E3 season event.
I'm very excited to be returning as Johnny Silverhand.
These showcases are dancing on the grave of E3 after actively taking part in its death, but the only reason this time of year is being treated as something special is because it used to be years ago, specifically because of E3. It's a very strange cycle. It makes me think of a group of friends who decide to watch Home on the Range, just one random Thursday, and everybody has a great time. Why wouldn't they? It's a great movie. But then the next week, and the week after that, and the week after that, one guy in this group is like, oh hey, we're super excited, it's Home on the Range night, let's do it. And for the first few weeks, everybody agrees there'd be a nice, we can get some more fun out of this, it's fine. Then 2 months later, that same guy is trying to get everybody to watch Home on the Range again. But everybody else has just moved on. They want to watch a whole bunch of other movies, or, not watch movies at all. They want to go bowling. They want to get a float down at the soda shop. The gaming industry is convinced that E3 style presentations are still like the coolest possible thing in the world, and that their audience will always be interested, but obviously not. If there's anything I miss about the old E3, it's got to be just the feeling of a special event, just having a special time of year, even if it's a sort of cynically motivated one. But I also don't think that a big annual communal gaming event needs to be driven by consumerism, although a lot of them just happen to be. I don't think we need to rely on brands to make a certain time of year feel special. Basically, any gaming convention is proof of that. And like, sure, those kinds of events have plenty of games advertised, there's sponsors and all that. But there's also just a ton of emphasis on older games, older series, and just like geeking out together for the sake of it. And I don't want to overshoot here, but I will anyway. The death of E3 and the potential death of the entire E3 season is an opportunity to realize that we don't need giant companies to decide how we engage with a hobby. We don't need brands to make a hobby feel special. We can do that on our own, and we can do it without getting riled up into a consumerist frenzy. So at least for my part, I think my new tradition for early June will just be, playing a bunch of games and reminding myself why I care about them. And hey, if there are new games announced that I want to play, I'll see them when I see them. I have a lot of other ways of coming across great new stuff. I don't need a big giant showcase to help me out with that, honestly. And I also definitely do not need abstract perfume style ads that just give me a vague sense of what a game might feel like when it releases sometime in the future. I'm hoping to leave E3 season behind for good. We'll see whether or not it happens. But please let me know how you are feeling. I would also really like to hear from some pros out there who have to go to these things for work. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Feel free to stick around the channel. And until next time, take care. All right, welcome to the extra bit. This is where we can just have a chat and I can keep you updated on the channel, basically. So first up, I saw that we have just a few new subscribers, I think, that have joined us since the last upload. Welcome. I'm enormously flattered that anyone is willing to support the channel, and it really helps that the people subscribing are just cool people by the looks of it. I don't do sponsorships, I don't run ads, although YouTube can do that without my permission, and I don't have a Patreon right now. So it means the world if you just choose to watch the videos and maybe share them with other folks if you feel like it. I know that I almost always apologize for how long it takes for me to upload, and well, here we are again. But this was especially tricky because about 4 days ago, I was finishing up a script for a completely different video, and at the last minute, I realized that I needed to scrap the whole thing. There was just some new information that completely gutted the premise of that video, so I just had to start from scratch on something new, but it's really on me for not planning ahead, so that's why this is even later than usual, I think. Okay, what else? I'm in the process of moving right now. I guess you can see some boxes in the background by accident. But it also means coming up with a new recording setup, assuming that all of the equipment actually, survives the move. It's exciting, but it's also pretty hectic. And I don't know, leaving here is also a bit of a head trip. The cat and I have been in this 200 square foot apartment since about 2018. And, that means this was my pandemic hideout, and I started all of my various YouTube things here, so mixed feelings overall. But anyway, a little bit of shakeup. It is delaying things here and there, but don't worry, I'll be back. Okay, I'll let you go. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon.